Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for tuning in to Creating with Your Spiritual Universe. I want to thank the community for supporting us and allowing us to bring messages, personal enhancement for everyone. Hopefully, that's been the case for you, as well as truth, as you know. As stated in many of my ramblings. Today I want to talk about this separation and the ways in which it is done to divide us as a human race in this universe. And diversity and richness and creativity and interest, things that cause us to be able to learn and to see beauty in all of its forms, has been turned into something that has been used against us. And what I'm talking about is the sickness of purposeful separation to weaken us as a race of beings, humanity. And it rears its ugly head in every single way. Every single way. And the lowest and most harmful emotions and mental states are in motion and put to work to perpetuate and to continue and to foster this kind of separation that I'm going to be discussing during this video. And we have separation in so many forms. We have the separation through race, black, white, Asian, you name it. And so there's, that's what they do over there, or that's how they are, or they don't look like me. And suddenly we have this kind of difference, which is only skin deep into the eyes. And when you really look deeply into what everyone wants in life, they want to be able to create a beautiful life for themselves and their loved ones. And that goes across the board. And the irony is, we all have more in common than we have distinctions and differences. And so you have this separation by race, so much to the point that it causes us to be hateful, foster a lack of empathy. It draws us away from our natural human selves. And it's a fabrication. It's not really how we're born. I have two daughters, and they were raised in with diverse teachings, and to love people no matter how they look, and decide whether they want to be with someone or be friends with someone based on how that person treats them, and based on what that person stands for, basically based on their character, and not on the other superficial things like what culture they're from, what race they are, how they believe, what they think, how they eat, what they do. And I found that being a father with that mentality from the start, and when children would come to the house to play with my children, I noticed that between the ages of 2 and about 4.5 to about 5, they have no idea about differences. They have no idea. They see a person, they see a friend, they have no idea. They don't really see. When people say, "Oh, I don't see color," I'm not one of those people. I'm not gonna lie to you. I see color, I see differences, and I look at that as the beauty in variety, and the thing that adds spice in life. So if you don't look like me, I'll notice it. But I appreciate that as being the universe in its varied arrays of creation and manifestation. That's how I see it. Okay, so I want to enjoy variety. I want to enjoy differences of thinking, different cultures, different foods, and just creativity, and seeing things that I have not seen before coming from different places. I see that as beauty. So there's no way I'm not going to recognize it. So you'll never hear that from me. And I don't quite think I believe anybody that says they don't see race or they don't see culture. It's just, I find that hard to believe. I really do. Because I see it and I appreciate it. And so going back to children, they don't really treat each other any differently until they're about 4.5 to 5. And I've had 2 daughters, and I've been able, they've been spaced far enough that I've been able to kind of see this in them and all of the friends that they have had and they bring to the house. And then after about 5, you get the question from them about the differences, and so you ask them, "Oh, why do you think? You know, because you didn't really notice any of that like before. What's it there? Well, I went to school and I heard this, or I see it on TV, or I see," and then you begin to see how the program starts to take hold. And then that told me that this kind of separation, the one based on hate, the one based on superiority, this race is smarter than this one, these people over here do this better than these people over here strictly because they are better at it, because that's how they are, because they're all born that way, and all these ridiculous statements. And that makes no sense, because when you take those very same people and you put them in the same culture with other people who raise them the same way, they end up being pretty much the same way of the culture that they're like the culture that they're raised in, no matter who they are, eventually. And if they're first generation, they might still be raised in the old culture's way, but then 2 or 3 generations, that's gone, and they're just like the people that they're around, the culture that they're around. So this separation weakens us. This separation causes us to have a lack of empathy for each other. We can do so many heinous acts with this kind of program and mentality. We will murder another human being without thought because we think they're inferior to us because of religion, or because of race, or because of sex in some places. You know, to murder someone that's, in some places, to murder a woman it's no big deal in many places because of this separation in sex. You just have to have some good reason that they say you need to have, and then you can do what you want to do, because, of course, that person is less valuable than this person based upon, again, whatever point of separation that is perpetuated and drilled into a particular culture. That's it. You go somewhere else, and it's another kind, another form. You go somewhere else, and it's another form. And let me tell you something. In a culture where this happens, there is a weight that is carried around by those who are victimized by this, that they don't even know until they leave it, and then they see. And I'm talking about my experience when I left where I grew up. When I left the country I grew up in, I moved to another country. I realized that I was treated differently, and I wasn't carrying the weight that I used to carry before. And this is just a realization. Didn't even know I was carrying it. So we put this weight and this burden on others, and living in a situation in the United States where I would kind of just I had this burden that I didn't know I was carrying. I moved to Australia, and the way I was treated was very different. I have no problems, nothing against any place. I'm just telling you my experience. And what I learned is, I go, you know what? I didn't even know I was carrying this, and I will never carry it again. So I live here in the United States, and I do not carry that weight ever, because I will not allow anyone to put that on me. Let them bear that weight. And if they want to put it, then if they want to put that on me, I give it right back to them. Let them wear it. Let them wear it. Let them learn the lessons of doing that to another human being. And so what we have to do is understand where this comes from. And this comes from as Lisa Renee, Energetic Synthesis, writes a blog on this particular thing. It's called the victimizer. I've even done a video on victimizer. And so if we understand the root of all of this, the root of all separation goes back to the victimizer program. And many things branch out of the victimizer program. Many things. If we go down to the root of this victimizer program, where we are pit against each other in any way, shape, or form that can be done, and it doesn't matter, you know, if you are all the same and you're all the same culture, hey, there's something for you too. Well, we can't separate you by culture, we can't separate you by race, we can't separate you by beliefs. We'll separate you by economics, social ladder, who has more and who has less. We'll use the social ladder, who has more and who has less, who's rich and who's poor and who's in the middle, and we'll separate you that way. And so the victimizer kicks in wherever we are not aware of it, and whoever buys into the falsehood of separation. And the victimizer basically says you have a victim and you have someone who victimizes them. And depending on how it's constructed, somebody is a victim and somebody is a victimizer. And that program runs, and as soon as we realize that the victim and the victimizer are both pawns, we should realize that as human beings, set against ourselves for the benefit of something else. The minute we bring that into our awareness, we will start to see this program as bright as the day is long, as it runs everywhere. And once we start saying, you know, I don't give my consent to that victimizer program, because that's the root of separation. That's how the separation is instilled in force and kept running day after day after day through that program. Once we say we no longer give any consent to that, and once we stamp the thoughts out of our heads that come in, because if you're living on this planet, you are under some kind of system of separation, whether you realize it or not. Okay? And so you don't have to participate in it. Maybe you're not one that participates in it, but you are in the middle of it and you see it happen. And a lot of times to deal with it, we just turn our heads and we just go the other way. And it occurs. But eventually it comes around to us that do that in another form. And understanding this program and understanding separation and what it does and how it weakens us will bring us to unity, because we cannot be beings that are bringing in unity consciousness with this. No way. This is going to have to be solved, and it starts with every one and each of us. And we have to start now, because we can be woken up and we can be spiritual. And I see it in the spiritual community. I see the separation in the middle of the spiritual community. It's exactly like it is in the supposedly, let's just say, non-spiritual community. Because if you ignore it, it doesn't go away. It simply follows you wherever you go. So when you wake up, you have to unplug from everything that has been plugged into you, including separation. Including separation of all. And I say separation because some of us may not have hate in our heart. But we don't have to have hate in our heart to participate and perpetuate and continue the separation. We don't. We can simply ignore it. And just by our ignoring of it, we perpetuate it. Because we are implicitly consenting to it. That word implicit consent needs to become a part of our spiritual vocabulary. Because basically, if you see something that is wrong and you do nothing, and you keep completely quiet about it, then you are complicitly participating in it. Now, what do I mean? What do? You don't have to run in there and start getting involved and putting yourself in a position of danger. But you need to start with it mentally and say, you know what, that's not right. And I remove my consent. And throw some energy with your intent on it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist, because you're going to have to answer to that. And like I said, you don't have to put yourself in danger. You don't have to risk anything. You simply have to say, what is it that I need to do, that I could do from my space, my being, to assist it, to get rid of this. And you ask yourself that question. You ask that question to your subconscious. And you'll be surprised the things that come. There'll be the things that you can do that you are capable of doing. And I don't want to give any suggestions of what that is, because this is something that has to be taken care of with us connecting to ourselves, to our hearts. And when we do that, the answers come. It cannot be dictated by someone like me who's talking to you. It can only be dictated by the empathy and the love that we hold within our hearts and within our beings. And when we have empathy, when we have love, and when we have a no-nonsense attitude to wrongs that are being done on this planet, that's when things will change. It all changes from within. And then when enough of us have those changes from within, it'll reflect out. And you'll see things like racism. You'll see things like misogyny. You'll see things like hate, cultural biases, institutional biases, and racism. Privileges to people because of how they were born. All of that will disappear, because those things exist because we don't have the empathy within us to say every human being deserves a chance to be what they planned for themselves before they came here. That's the answer. It's not in government. It's not in marching on the streets and saying, and I don't have anything against that. That is effective. But more effective is the mentality that we hold in here. More effective is connecting to our hearts. Because when we do that, we bypass the mechanisms that would oppose us when we are marching. Because then people see, and then you all of a sudden, your movement is infiltrated, and suddenly you have all of this confusion and misrepresentation going on. That's what this reality will do to protect itself and keep the sickness that it perpetuates on every single one of us. But when we go through to our hearts, and when we develop the empathy, and when we connect to our subconscious, our deep selves, our spirits, our divine selves, there is no solution for that. There is no newspaper or media reports that can neutralize that or corrupt that. That's where we need to go, and that's where we are going. And it takes people like me and you to get it done. Not anybody in position of power. It's something that we can do within ourselves, and it'll ripple out, And then the 100th monkey effect will take, because once enough people adopt this mentality about ourselves, then, and only then, will changes come like that. Like that. Because what is in here is what is reflected out. So when you see what's out there, and you don't like it, that's the collective consciousness of whatever that place is that's being reflected out. That's all it is. It's really that simple. Change the way we think, change and connect to our empathic nature that resides within the heart, and that will change everything. All right, I hope this was of help. Thank you so much. And until the next video, remember to defy the taboo about who you really are.